to order. Roll call, please.
Hannah here.
Sullivan here.
Grillo here.
Lorick here.
Gavich here.
Guzikowski here.
Beepert here.
Chandler here.
Okay, we are all here and accounted for. Before we do the minutes, Carrie, I will please ask if you would read in the announcement of video and phone conferencing.
The City of Oak Creek is authorized to hold this public meeting remotely during the COVID-19 public health emergency under the March 16th and March 20th advisories from the Office of Open Government and the Wisconsin Department of Justice. Per the advisories, this meeting being conducted via Zoom video conference with telephone conferencing capabilities was duly noticed per the City of Oak Creek Municipal Code and statutory notice requirements more than 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Members of the public have been advised of the options for participation via direct mailing to the property owners within 300 feet of a proposal, via the COVID-19 information page on the city's website, via social media, and via the information contained on the meeting agenda. This meeting may also be viewed at the city's YouTube page, the link for which was contained in all aforementioned notice methods. The meeting recording will also be accessible on the city's YouTube page within 48 hours. Plan commissioners and participants are initially muted upon joining the meeting. Plan commissioners and staff have the ability to mute and unmute their microphones throughout the meeting. Please mute at all times except for roll call, motions, voting, and when recognized by the chair. Roll call and voting will occur per the usual and customary procedures, starting from Plan Commissioner seating positions south to north in the Common Council chambers. The chair will facilitate questions and comments by calling on each panel Plan Commissioner or by requesting the use of the raise hand function in the Zoom webinar control panel. Only speak once you have been recognized by the chair or moderator. Applicants, their representatives, and all other participants who wish to speak will be unmuted when there is a direct request for information from the Plan Commissioner staff, when the Plan Commission utilizes when the participant utilizes the raise hand function within the Zoom webinar control panel, and the moderator verbally indicates that they are unmuted, and when a phone participant dials *9 to indicate that they wish to speak and the moderator verbally indicates that their line is open. When unmuted, all participants must state their name and address for the record, then proceed with comments or questions. Questions and comments may also be entered into the Q&A function within the Zoom webinar control panel. Staff and/or the moderator will monitor this function during the meeting and provide the information requested. There shall be no private messages or side conversations during the meeting utilizing the chat or Q&A functions. Chat and Q&A messages are part of the public record. There is one or more public hearings scheduled as part of this meeting. After the chair announces the public hearing, staff will read the public hearing notice into the record, state that the hearing is open and subject to the meeting procedure aforementioned, and provide a brief overview of the proposal. The chair will then proceed with the hearing by making calls for public comment. Following the third call for public comment, the chair will close the public hearing and proceed to consideration of the remaining agenda items. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate that. That will get us to approval of the minutes of September 22nd, 2020. If everybody please take a look. When you're satisfied, there's no omissions, errors, corrections, comments, I will entertain a motion. They're quite lengthy tonight.
Guzikowski makes a motion to accept the minutes from September 22nd, 2020.
Beepert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Donnie abstains.
Beepert aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have significant common council actions. Carrie, if you would, please.
Council approved the following. 2 ordinances for conditional use permit amendments for 2 different clinics and outdoor recreation areas on the property at 140 East Rawson Avenue. Also, a resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental cooperation agreement between the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District and the City of Oak Creek outlining responsibilities for the delivery and receipt of clean soil from the district's Wilson Park Reach 3 Phase 1 project for beneficial reuse at the city properties at 8940, 8730, and 9010 South Fifth Avenue. There was also a discussion in closed session regarding the development at the property located at 9300 South Fifth Avenue, 4001 East Lake Vista Boulevard, and 4200 East Lake Vista Boulevard. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. That gets us to our first of two public hearings tonight, and that is to hear a sign appeal for a proposed sign submitted by Mr. Michael Faber of the Ryan's Business Park LLC. Would allow the applicant to install one 10-foot by 12-foot ground sign on the property at 1001 West Ryan Road. Carrie.
I will now read the notice into the record. City of Oak Creek notice of public hearing before the Plan Commission. This meeting will be held by video phone conference only. Persons wishing to participate in the video conference, including applicants and their representatives, must register via the website prior to the meeting. The video conference will begin at 5:55 p.m. to allow participants to log in. Attendees who wish to participate by phone may do so by calling the City Hall at 414-766-7000 before 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting, which is October 13th, 2020, to obtain a meeting call-in number. Persons who wish to view the meeting live without participating may visit the City of Oak Creek YouTube page at the link provided. Persons requiring other reasonable accommodations may contact the city at 414-766-7000. Requests should be made as far in advance as possible, preferably a minimum of 48 hours. A public hearing for a sign appeal will be held on October 13th, 2020 at 6 p.m. online via the video conference at the link provided. The appellant is Michael Faber, Ryan Business Park LLC. The tax key number is 905-9012-000 at 1001 West Ryan Road, which is Lot 6 of CSM 9242. The request is a variance from section 170706 sub D, which states in part that ground signs shall not exceed 8 feet in height and shall not exceed 100 square feet on any one side, no more than 200 square feet on all sides for any premises. If granted, the variance would allow the applicant to install one 10-foot by 12-foot ground sign on a portion of the property at 1001 West Ryan Road. The zoning of the property is M1 PUD, Manufacturing Plan Unit Development. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present. Dated this 23rd day of September 2020. Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin. Mayor Dan Bukevich, Chairman. This is a public hearing. All those who wish to speak on this matter, please indicate that you wish to speak either by dialing *9 on your phone or using the raise hand function in the webinar control panel, and you will be notified that you are able to speak by the moderator. This is a public hearing. Please state your name and address for the record prior to proceeding to comments. This hearing is now open.
Great, thank you. Carrie, before we go to the public, do you want to provide any background on it?
Sure. So this is a request for an appeal, and the specific request is to exceed that 8-foot maximum for a 10-foot high sign. And it says that this is part of 1001 West Ryan Road. Because there was a certified survey map, that address has been updated to reflect the lot number and the address change. So what we're talking about is a corner portion of that former parcel at 1001. It's on Outlot 5, which will be transferred to the city. You can see the sign easement is the proposed location in yellow on the screen in both areas. It is outside of the vision triangle as shown here. There is landscaping, extensive landscaping at the entryway for this proposed sign and around it. And this is a view of what the proposed sign looks like. So there are a few criteria that the Plan Commission can consider in their review of this request. The deliberation of the variance can consider location, height, overall size, appearance, number, location of other signs in the vicinity of the proposed sign, and any other factor that the Plan Commission deems appropriate, excluding content, of course. Staff does not make recommendations regarding sign appeals, and decisions to approve must include the following criteria. There shall be no public harm, and there shall be a public benefit. Variance considerations shall include enhancement of the overall character of a neighborhood or mitigation of unusual site conditions. The sign will not result in an undue concentration of signage, which renders it difficult or confusing to read existing signs, and the effect of a proposed sign may have on depreciating property values of a neighborhood. Since staff do not make recommendations regarding sign appeals, there is a motion for consideration included in your packet. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. And as Carrie had stated and read into the record, this is a public hearing. We will make 3 calls, this being the first. Kevin, do we have anybody wishing to speak?
We have Paul Quick, rep for the applicant. He's available if there's questions, but nobody else at this time.
Okay, thank you. Second call.
All right, nobody raised their hands for that one either.
And third and final call.
And nobody for that one either.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. We'll now close the public hearing and move on to item 7A, I believe. 7A. Yes, 7A. That is consideration of that sign variance. So I will open it up to the commissioners for questions. Christine, we'll start from your end, please.
I actually have no questions. I have it reviewed and it looks good to me. No questions.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
Engineering has none.
Okay. Dawn?
No questions at this time.
Greg?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Chris?
I don't have any questions, and I'm not really opposed to it. I mean, I think the size of it really kind of works with the whole corner there. So I guess the question, I was trying to find my answer here in my packet, and I know it's here. What is maximum height that's supposed to be there? And width?
This is Carrie. The maximum height for monument signs is 8 feet, no more than 100 square feet.
Okay. And so this is going 2 feet higher, and then the square, okay. Okay, yeah, so given that information, I still have no concerns about this then. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Fred?
I have no concerns or problems with it.
Don?
No issues.
And Chauncey?
I do have a question for the applicant. My question is specifically, I know we're talking about one monument sign. However, in the information provided by Ryan Business Park on the 10th of August, it refers to 2 monument signs. So are there monument signs in multiple locations, or it was just decided to have one?
Paul, you should be able to speak and unmute yourself. We need your name, address, and organization for the record, please.
This is Paul Quick. The company is Capstone Quadrangle. The address is N17W24222 Riverwood Drive, Suite 160, Waukesha, Wisconsin 53188. With regard to the 2 signs, there are 2 signs in the original request, and the first sign was approved because that sign is the height of it is 10 feet, whereas this is, the height of that is 8 feet, whereas this is 10 feet. So therefore, this came back for review. That's other sign is located on South 13th Street across from the Quick Trip Mart at the recently activated stop and go lights. This sign is the same in design, but for the addition of the Amazon fulfillment line of this sign. And the reason that was added to this sign is that Bartell Court is the entrance to the Amazon facility, and we believe that it's important to have that name there in order to help with the wayfinding of the general public to find the Amazon facility. Otherwise, they may miss it, proceed east past the turn, so to speak, and then have to do some kind of a a turnaround to get back. So that is the difference between this sign and the other sign. But they are both very similar, or exact in identity and in conveying the Ryan Business Park.
And I want to make sure I understand. So the part that says Amazon fulfillment, that is the additional 2 feet versus
Correct.
the other sign? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I agree with Alderman Guzikowski. Given the sheer scale of the building and size of the business park, I find it appropriate to grant the variance and go with the extra 2 feet. Just as a note, if commissioners will remember, earlier in the year, we okayed a banner for hiring on the Amazon. We were a little bit worried about the size of it. If you happen to go by there, it looks like a speck on that building. It almost should have been bigger, believe it or not. I don't normally say that, but I was just amazed at how we were perceiving it to be big. And from when you're on 13th, it's not very big. So the sheer size of that building, I think, helps dictate the size of the sign as well. So if there's no other questions or comments, we'll look for a motion.
Seibert moves that the Plan Commission approve a sign variance allowing the installation of one 12 by 10 monument sign on a portion of the property at 1001 West Ryan Road, Outlot 5 of CSM 9265.
Guzikowski, second.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, I.
Lorik, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Okay. There you go, Mr. Quick. You are all set. Thank you very much for taking the time and explaining the questions that were asked. Next is a public hearing for a landscape plan review submitted by the United States Post Office for the facility at 2201 East College Avenue. Carrie, would please.
Mr. Mayor, this is not a public hearing. This is actually a continuation of the landscape plan review from the previous meeting. Just in case anybody was concerned that this was a hearing, it is not.
Oh, thank you. It does say old business. My mistake. Thank
Not
you
a
for the
problem.
correction. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So if plan commissioners will recall, this property is located on College Avenue and the current zoning is on the screen. So the previous discussion was regarding the proposed landscaping for this site. And there were several members of the public, neighbors in that in the neighboring residential area who were present and expressed some concerns, and we can go over those concerns again. But unfortunately, due to an unfortunate mix-up in the date, the applicant was not able to join us and participate in that conversation and answer questions. So he is here tonight to provide that information and to answer questions. So the concerns that were raised from that previous meeting include a clear delineation of the work on the USPS site as opposed to what is being done very close to neighbors' property. There was some confusion as to whether or not that work was crossing the property line. By some neighbors were confused by that. There was a request to add trees or evergreens or some kind of screen and buffer for wind and sound protection for those adjoining neighbors, especially on the neighbor side, the residential side of the fencing that was installed and put in on the berms. There was a question about the maintenance of the landscaping and dust control measures that are perceived to be lacking as the construction continues on the site. There was a concern raised for the lack of screening of the trailer parking lot and the truck parking lot, excuse me, to that residential neighborhood. There were concerns raised in the staff report and by the director at the time regarding the College Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue frontages and the relation of the landscaping to those particular frontages. and as well as the fence design for what is being used on the property. So what we are here tonight to discuss are those concerns and any others that may occur during this conversation. You'll recall this is what the site is that we're discussing tonight, and this is the proposed landscaping. And I have been told that the landscape plan is very close, if not identical, to what has been planted on the site right now. So we did have a suggested motion in two parts that was considered by the Plan Commission, but the actual vote did not occur due to holding the item. So you'll see that there are several considerations to be included in that motion. What we are trying to do tonight is find a practical solution for the implementation of a landscape plan that addresses these concerns. I will now turn it over to the mayor to facilitate the discussion.
Thank you very much, Carrie. We had a really long and spirited discussion on this the last time, and we had a lot of unanswered questions going forward on the landscape plan. So hopefully we can take it a step further and work it out. I think Carrie gave a really nice synopsis of some of the big questions that went on to the Chapel Hill subdivision. With that, I guess we can kind of dive right into it, to where we're at and where we're going to wind up with in regards to the 2008 proposal. So put it out to the commissioners first with questions. Start with Commissioner Chandler. We'll go from my right.
I do have a question for the applicant. My first question is in regards to, there were a line of trees planted by Oak Creek, the city, and they were removed. So we just wanted to inquire if those trees will be replaced.
All right, Joseph Cece, you should be able to unmute yourself and speak, and then we just need your name, address, and organization for the record, please.
My name is Joseph Cece with the U.S. Postal Service. My address is P.O. Box 505, Hills Corners, Wisconsin. I am unfamiliar with a line of trees planted by the city that was removed. Could you be specific and point out exactly where this is?
Sure. In the report, it would be on page 4 of this item, the last paragraph.
I don't control the report being shown, so I...
Oh, okay.
Oh. You know what? I believe they're talking, and if I'm wrong, somebody please correct me, but we're talking about what would be the farthest west end of the Chapel Hill subdivision, as well as the northern border. Am I correct in that, Matt? Is that where we lost some trees?
I'm unfamiliar where the trees were lost.
Okay.
So this is Carrie. What
okay,
I can
Carrie.
state in the staff report is contractors working on behalf of USPS had removed trees that had been recently planted by the city on USPS property in preparation for installation of a fence. It is the city's expectation that the landscaping plan for this area be supplemented to account for those trees that have been recently removed. So wherever the installation of the fence occurred, trees that had been planted by the city had been removed.
I honestly have no idea where trees were removed to install the fence, because the fence line was specifically located to avoid removing any trees. As you may recall, there was some concern about the fence line along the park there, and we pulled it back quite a ways. And we've pulled it back from the property lines in all cases. I apologize, but I do not know where trees were removed that were removed in order for us to install the fence that we have installed.
Oh, again, I'm going off my memory, but I thought it was on the western edge because that abuts the Chapel Hills Park, correct? I even thought the city forester had put them in at one point.
I do recall that the city forester planted a whole bunch of trees right before she retired in the park, but to my recollection, none of them were planted on Postal Service property.
Okay, then maybe I'm mistaken. Okay.
And we did pay the city for planting street trees along Pennsylvania, but I don't believe that's what we're talking about.
Okay. Chauncey, you have any other other questions?
Yes. Can you provide more information about replacing the two screening walls? One was a 20-foot wall, let's see, adjacent to the neighborhood, and the other was between the main employee parking lot and residential property along Pennsylvania Avenue.
The Postal Service does not intend to construct a visual barrier of that nature.
Mr. Cece, in a letter dated from the U.S. Post Office to the city of Oak Creek, let me get the date correct, January 2nd, 2020, we sent out a list of questions and the responses came back that a 20-foot sound abutment wall recommended of environmental study at the southwest corner of the truck areas, it appears to be removed, and it said the contractor is required to conform to the site design requirements of the 2008 PUD. And we understand that wall no longer is there, but it existed on the 2008 PUD. Will that be going in?
At this
That was a concern of the neighborhood.
At this time, the Postal Service is not planning to install that wall.
So will there be any barriers in its replacement of the wall?
There already are two earthen berms of significant height that were constructed to alleviate sound and visual concerns. They show up on the plan that is being displayed on the screen as like very light green elongated ovals. The design of the site plan changed significantly between what was originally conceived back in 2008 and the current construction, and construction of the sound barrier was deemed to be not necessary.
Okay. And I realize you're just the messenger here for the USPS, but in that same letter, item 30, all loading docks substantially screened from public view with screening walls and or natural landscape as required by conditions and restrictions. Post office response is the contractor will conform to the design site requirements of 2008 PUD. Are you berming that so they're not going to see the docks from the Chapel Hill subdivision on I guess it'd be the northwest corners and the far west side?
Well, the siting of the building where all the docks face to the west and the construction of the two earthen berms prevent anyone from the Chapel Hill subdivision viewing the docks.
So will that berm go in, or is it in?
There are two berms installed already at this point per the landscaping plan that is on display.
Okay. Now, obviously, the property is fenced, correct?
Yes, it is. Pretty much per the plan that is on display at this point.
Is any fencing within the front or street yard or adjacent to residential properties decorative wrought iron as requested in the 2008 PUD?
No, the fencing on the site, except for that which faces Pennsylvania Avenue and College Avenue, is a standard 6-foot high cyclone fencing.
According to the 2008 PUD, the chain link fence was only permitted to the extent that it is screened by the berm. Is the fencing screened by a berm, or is it on the residential side?
Much of the fencing is located in such a position that it is effectively screened by the berms and by the natural landscaping. If there are locations that the city wishes to suggest that additional screening is required, please note that in your response to the Postal Service.
Okay, I'm kind of dominating things here. Sorry, Chauncey, I kind of took over your spot there. More questions, Commissioner Chandler?
Yeah, another question about more landscaping. Can you share with us the plan for landscaping along College Avenue and in the parking areas?
The landscaping in the parking area is primarily going to be just ornamental beds. If you can see at where the vehicles will enter the parking area, there are 2 landscape beds there in traffic islands. There's also some supplemental landscaping along Pennsylvania, along College Avenue, adjacent to the building and in the lawn area between the building and our service road that connects the traffic circle to the truck entrance at the northwest corner of the property.
The reason that I bring that up specifically for the parking areas, it was identified that more landscaping would be included throughout the entire parking lot. So that is not the case.
The landscaping budget allowed for the concentration of the plantings primarily along the border between, or the boundary between the Postal Service property and the park. And that is where the majority of the investment has been made. If the city wishes to request additional landscaping, please identify it specifically in its response to the Postal Service.
So that's my question about the parking areas. Just going back to College Avenue, there was more landscaping identified or suggested for College Avenue as well. Can you provide a little more information about the landscaping there?
Well, what's shown on the screen is the plan that has been implemented as of this point. I do believe that David J. Frank has completed the plantings that are part of the current construction contract.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
you're okay for now, Chauncey?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, Fred?
Yeah, I have a question for Commissioner Sullivan. And the question I have is the stormwater runoff. Because of the layout of the property, is that tapered enough so it prevents from going into Chapel Hills and going down into the stormwater pond?
This is Commissioner Sullivan. As far as Chapel Hills, the only subdivision, the only concerns that we had, and that was mentioned in our discussions 2 weeks ago, were the properties along Pennsylvania Avenue, and probably the first 3 or 4 properties on Poplar just west of Crane. The grading that occurred by the Postal Service did not meet their grading plans, and they created a swale along the fence line, or basically along their east property and south property line. And we're not sure how well that drains. So that is one of our concerns. And as far as the remainder of the site, it does drain to storm sewer that does run through those ponds. But to answer your question, it's just in that north or that southeast corner are concerns of the Postal Service.
Thanks, Mike. I don't see really any problems, but I had a person that lives in Chapel Hills that talked to me about the drainage, and they just had a question or a concern about it.
Is that it, Fred?
That's it.
Thank you. Don?
Not really. Obviously, I was absent from last week's discussion, and I've read through this a couple times and still trying to get a handle on the questions. I'm going to just pass for now, but a question might come up if you don't mind.
No, just speak up, please. Chris?
Really, my questions kind of just go back to the last meeting and kind of overall, there are a lot of unanswered questions for neighbors that they don't know where things go, who to talk to, and who to get answers from. And if it's the city or the postal service, but drainage is one, the berming is another, the fencing, covering up the fencing was another, that so they're not looking at a cyclone fence because that's not what they're expecting to have to look at. But it sounded like Mr. CC said that it actually is covered up by a berm. I'm not sure if that's I understand that correct. That's because when I was over there looking at it, I thought I could see it, but those are the concerns. And I know there are a lot of, when I'm looking back at our old notes from our last meeting, there's just, every topic and point you could, these people are just really asking for answers and help, and they're just not getting it from the Postal Service. That's it.
Thank you, Chris. Greg?
No, I don't have any additional questions from what's been brought up and asked.
Okay. Dawn?
Nothing for me.
Matt?
We really, I guess, the question that we had out of engineering is clearly regarding the grading that occurred on the east portion of the property. We reviewed the plans that were submitted to the city, and it does appear that the grading is not meeting those plans. So I'm not sure if Joe has the ability to answer that question, or if it's just another one where we have to add it to our comments to the USPS in regards to trying to get those questions answered.
Thank you, Matt. Christine?
Nothing here for me. Thanks.
Okay. I
Mr.
answered.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Carrie.
this is Carrie. There was a question submitted in the Q&A function by Nancy Sobczak.
Oh,
The
thank you.
landscaping and planting of trees is located inside of the USPS property, not outside of the fence to block the neighbor's view of the fence.
Mr. Cece, any comment to that to help buffer that neighborhood?
Could you just repeat that, Carrie?
The comment submitted was that the landscaping and planting of trees is located inside of the USPS property, not outside of the fence to block the neighbor's view of the fence.
This is Joe Cece. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to conclude that the person's comment has to do with the eastern boundary of the site that backs to the residences on South Pennsylvania Avenue.
I believe that's where she lived from the phone call a couple weeks back.
Yes. So as shown on the landscaping plan, the trees and shrubs were planted within the Postal Service fence line. That was done because between the property of those neighbors and the fence, the contractor had to redesign their site drainage to create a swale there. And planting the trees and the shrubs in there was deemed counterproductive to ensuring proper drainage of our site and of the neighbor sites, which all drain into that swale that the Postal Service's contractor has created there. The swale is designed to take all the water that comes from the site and the neighbors' properties on South Pennsylvania to what we would call the southeast corner of the lot, and then turn it to flow in a westerly direction through the existing wetlands. At the bottom of the wetlands there, or rather at the west end of the wetlands, there is a structure that takes that stormwater out and discharges it further onto Postal Service property.
So all the plantings were kept within inside the fence of the postal property, correct? That's,
Yes, that
Mr.
is correct.
Mayor,
yes.
there are two more submissions through the Q&A function. Rachel, I'm sorry, I'm going to pronounce your last name incorrectly, Miliaka, stated that the fence is on top of the berm, and Ms. Sobchak stated that she's on the south side of the property.
I see, Carrie, you asked if they wanted to answer. Oh, my chat just went away.
Yes, I read those comments out loud. Those were the two comments that were submitted.
Okay. Oh, one more came in.
There's one more from Kristen Chmielewski. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. End of Norwood berm is shorter than the berm. Also, L shape around the semi parking is gone.
Again, Mr. Cece, is what the neighbors are seeing, is that what it's gonna be? I guess let's just cut to the chase. Is this all this is it? Is this all we can expect from the United States Post Office at this time?
What the neighbors are seeing and what anyone who goes by the site will see, I believe, is the fully landscaped site as we intend to complete it this year. If the city wishes to comment and suggest additional work of any nature related to landscaping, that is the reason that this plan was submitted to the city for review.
So Carrie, let me get this straight. They submitted this plan, okay? Obviously, it's different than the 08, and I'll try to get over that. It's different than 08, and our choice today is to accept this plan. What's the alternative if we say no, because legally we really can't go back against them? So do we accept it and then ask for recommendations for improvements?
I think what the Plan Commission is trying to get at is a mutually acceptable solution to some of these questions and concerns that have been raised. If there needs to be more conversation between the city and the USPS, we can certainly do that. They're asking for concurrence of this plan. If the Plan Commission is not comfortable with that, you can either hold the item or you can, vote for or against. There were two more comments that were submitted in the Q&A function from the neighbors who have already spoken or submitted through the Q&A function. Something about shorter than the fence, and the other one is there's no wall around the semi-parking or a berm.
Kristen, just, I don't know if you got in late, but Mr. Cece validated that they will not be putting in those walls at the loading dock. We understand the vegetation and the berms were supposed to suffice and also be the sound barrier. Correct, Mr. Cece?
Yes, that is the design intention.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just have a concern, because if we go along with this or try to concur with it, every time we bring up a concern or a comment, Mr. CC says that we need to send a letter and ask for more recommendations, and I'm just not sure where it's going to get us, because we're trying. We thought we were clear in our last round, and somewhere there's a big miscommunication and where what they would want to do for these neighbors.
No, I don't disagree with you, Chris. I think there's still some questions surrounding stormwater runoff that Fred brought up and Matt had concerns of from engineering. That troubles me a little bit. Well, probably a little more than a little bit. Again, we'd really like to work in better partnership and have I just think a clearer understanding. It doesn't seem like we've cleared up a few things, probably not to the neighbor's satisfaction, but at least we know what it's going to be. I'm just kind of reading the chats here. Camouflage with plantings. again, the vegetation, I think Mr. CC made it pretty clear that the fence will not have any plantings or vegetation on the outside of the postal property. All plantings will remain inside the fence. So to Nancy's comment, I don't believe they intend to camouflage them fences. And I'm sorry, that was in the chat. She asked if they'd be camouflaged. You know, I don't want to say the berms are what the berms are, because, you know, obviously it's not the look that everybody was anticipating. So there's a high level of disappointment from the neighborhood on this. So,
Mayor Bukavich, I have another question for the
yeah,
app.
go ahead, Commissioner Chandler.
So in regards to the dust control, you were kind of touching on there's a way to control the dust getting to the residential areas. Can you share a little more information on how that will be done?
This is Joseph Cece. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, dust control was an issue during the construction of this facility. I worked in coordination with Doug Seymour that anytime there were complaints about dust to the city, that I requested he contact me and that I would instruct the contractor to take remediation efforts. The contractor did institute remediation during construction when there was dust being created by the use of water trucks that would come and water the bare earthen areas. The site is done with the grading. I don't believe that dust is going to be an issue anymore. All areas that are not built or paved are going to be landscaped with grass or prairies, or except for the two small, the detention ponds. And there should no longer be any concern about dust for the neighborhood. Regarding stormwater drainage, if I could address that one more time.
Yes, please.
The entire site is designed to drain to the large stormwater detention pond. Along the access road to our site for our employees from the traffic circle, just east of it, there's a underground stormwater sewer system that takes the water that runs off of the streets and off of the paved area and off of the large grassy area south of the employee parking lot and routes it underground directly to the stormwater detention pond, the larger one at the south end of the property. All the runoff from the building, the downspouts, the internal downspouts, and the parking and maneuvering areas and the drives, that is all also routed underground to that large stormwater detention facility. So there's no water from the site that is not handled in accordance with the stormwater management plan that was submitted and approved by the state DNR. The Chapel Hill subdivision, as far as I can tell, its stormwater system drains onto the Postal Service property and has since the subdivision was built, and that still is routed through natural swales through our property to the point where it joins the outflow into Oak Creek. So I'm a bit puzzled by concerns about stormwater drainage. I believe that's been thoroughly dealt with and should result in no problems for the neighbors in the subdivision.
Mr. Mayor, there was a comment that was submitted regarding the stormwater from Rachel Milyaka. She said the berm is sloped to drain water to their front yard and the neighbor's side yard. There have been problems with water in the past, and sloping the berms toward the neighborhood is not a good choice in her opinion.
And that's the south berm of the postal facility, correct? Which would be their south parking lot. Northern Chapel Hill subdivision. I don't know. Matt, any comment with regards to that? I mean, it's a berm. The water is going to flow, if things running east-west. The water's gonna flow north-south, you know.
I think the area she's speaking of is located at the corner of Crane and Poplar. I believe she is the last home on Crane on the north side that actually faces Crane. That area originally was intended to drain all the way from the home down USPS property onto that service drive or employee drive, whichever you call it, that runs north-south. That was the original intention. For some reason, their contractor, from conversations that Joe had just given, chose to change the grading plan, create a berm and a swale that runs now from the north to the south corner and then heads west to the wetland area that backs along the property along Poplar. Personally, engineering wise, it probably still meets the stormwater plan. Neighbor choice, not a good one. Should have handled the water the way it was. The dirt could have been used in other locations. If that was a need of storage of soil instead of the grading that they originally intended. But we're stuck with it at this point. It's a matter of ensuring that the drainage doesn't negatively impact anybody. I mean, that's the thing we have to concentrate on at this point.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Well, boy. Boy, oh boy. Okay. You know, I'm just, again, if we concur with this plan, Mr. Cece, and in all honesty, I know it's a public meeting, what are the chances of getting any additional landscape going through the USPS? Either now, regardless, because, you know, it's really not meeting standards for the neighborhood. So what's your professional opinion?
This is Joseph. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I think it's important to clarify the purpose of the submission. The development agreement required the Postal Service to submit the landscaping plan to the Plan Commission for review. We are neither asking or expecting the Plan Commission to approve, concur, or reject it. The purpose of the submission is for the Plan Commission to respond to the Postal Service, if it so chooses, with specific comments and requests if they would like to see changes to the plan that we have developed. So I don't see the need for the Plan Commission to approve, concur, or reject the plan. This is the plan that was developed. It has been implemented. If the Plan Commission feels that it requires refinement or improvement or modification, please respond in writing to me as the representative of the Postal Service with your suggestions, concerns, requests. I'm also available at any time to meet with anyone representing the city to walk the site and review the concerns that have been raised about drainage of the site. As a point of information, the Postal Service has retained a surveyor who is preparing a survey of the entire property showing the as-built condition, and that would include the grades as well. And when that is completed, I can make that available to the city if it so chooses.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor?
Yes.
To that regard, there are 6 conditions in the suggested motion that speak to some suggestions for the Plan Commission to address these issues by requesting additional information and requesting those changes to be made. To provide landscaping along College Avenue to better address the intent of the original 2008 proposal. To identify and describe the materials and heights of all fencing proposed, including any such berms and landscaping that may be required per the 2008 agreements. To create a 3rd landscape berm at the south end of the parking and loading area adjacent to Chapel Hills Park. to provide landscaping at the intersection of College and Pennsylvania Avenues in recognition of its shared gateway entry into the cities of Oak Creek and South Milwaukee. That parking areas be landscaped in accordance with the municipal code, and that information be provided on the height and diameter of proposed trees at maturity to determine if they would form an effective visual screen. These are the suggested conditions or recommendations for revisions to those plans per the suggested motion before the Plan Commission. If you wish to be more specific about what you're requesting in terms of changes, I think that this is the appropriate forum. Mr. Ceci, you are hearing some of the concerns, and I think those are speaking directly to areas that would be part of the changes that would be requested at this time. Mr. Mayor?
Appreciate that clarification. You know, as a condition, I would seriously like our engineering to confer with U.S. Postal Service staff just to make sure we're clear on that stormwater. We did hear Matt's opinion, and I respect that. I just think for the neighbor satisfaction, we could probably go that one step farther. And I think I would add that when we get to, I'm sorry, I'm just looking for the height of the fencing and the landscaping. You know, we've established that it'll be on the USPS side. And I don't know where our code goes, but is it possible to have a plant that clings to the fence and helps break up the image of the fence on the postal side, not the neighbor's side, but to possibly put vegetation on that fence, a natural vegetation. Again, just spitballing it. I don't like to do this on the fly, but I understand where you're coming, Carrie. This would almost be the points we'd want to revisit with this motion, but I would add the stormwater. Any other suggestions from commissioners?
I have a comment, I guess. Do we have to, did I hear that hold was an option on this? And then, Carrie?
If the Plan Commission wishes to hold this item again, I think that what needs to happen is the Plan Commission needs to prepare the areas that they want to see addressed in the next iteration of plans, per Mr. Ceci's comment. If everything needs to be in writing, then we need to be very specific about what it is the Plan Commission wants to see.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking because, and Mr. Ceci, I'm not putting words in your mouth, I'm just trying to interpret what you were saying. No matter what our decision is, if we make the motion, it doesn't sound like the USPS is going to recognize our decision one way or the other. The only thing they're willing to entertain is a discussion in writing about suggested changes, and then we'll see. So I'm not sure what the point of having a motion is. I'd rather hold it until we really understand what needs to be done to help the neighbors out here before we make a motion that we're kind of bound to. That's my suggestion. It doesn't sound like the USPS is really interested in us making a decision as far as Oak Creek's concerned.
Yeah, we really have some misunderstandings going on with the neighborhood. You know, I kind of agree with Don. I really think, and Carrie to that matter, I think we really got to be specific in what our requests will be going forward.
I can tell you that there have been written comments that were submitted back and forth with regard to these plans several times. Those written comments were submitted by Doug, and I apologize that he is not able to attend the meeting this evening. So this would be an additional opportunity to provide more written comments. There are written comments that are included as part of the staff report, so that's a jumping off point, but there's also another comment that was submitted through the Q&A chat box from Nancy Sobchak stating, that she personally spoke with Mr. Cece along with Rachel Miyaka after the last in-person planning meeting, and he assured them that the landscaping would be on the neighborhood side of the fence. She wants to know when this changed.
Yeah, and I just seen that, and this is where I'm saying I mean, we're kind of getting what we're getting, but if we're going to request something, I want to make sure we're only going to kind of get one last shot at it because they've already got it in. I mean, if they're going to make some adjustments, be kind enough to do it for us. I want to make sure we ask all the concerns at once, so to speak.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
one last thing is I agree with your comment about someone from staff, whether engineering doing checking out the grading. I mean that we have to tie up that loose end for sure to understand what's going on with the stormwater. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So what's the flavor? We hold it and we get a formal letter out to the USPS and bring it back.
That's my thought, unless, unless somebody has a good reason why not to, or why that's a bad idea.
This is Christine. I agree with you, Don and Dan. I think it's a good idea to hold it until we gather our thoughts together in a written format that Mr. Cece would agree with. And then we just generate them and give them to him at one time instead of just giving him pieces here and there.
This is Carrie. I think those specific concerns or areas to address should be stated here as much as possible. I understand where the Plan Commission is coming from, but this is part of the open forum. This is part of the open discussion. This is where we need to make the at least initial comments on this particular plan. We are getting quite a few comments coming in from the neighbors, and there are quite a few who are on this this discussion item. Perhaps now, Mr. Mayor, might be a good time to open the floor.
Yes, for sure. Allow them to speak. It may be quite more efficient than the question and answer function.
All right, so then if you want to raise your hand, any residents wishing to speak on this item, we will unmute you in the order that you raise your hand. And if you're calling in, I believe it's *9 to raise your hand on the phone. All right, we have Michael. Michael, will need your name and address for the record, and you should be able to unmute yourself.
You hear me?
Yes, got you, Michael.
Michael Knese, 6419 South Pennsylvania Avenue. The fence is on top of the berm. And I'm wondering who's going to maintain the property between my property line and that fence. And the fence is on top of the berm on the east side of the lot.
Okay. Mr. Cece, who will maintain that east side of the fence on your property?
Don't see him on.
Yeah, figures.
No, I see him. There he is. He just takes a little bit. He's there. Go ahead.
The Postal Service will maintain all of its property to its property lines, including outside of the secured perimeter fencing.
Is there going to be a specific maintenance schedule for that property so we don't have shoulder high weeds through there like we have since the construction started?
I'm not 100% familiar with how that gets developed, but yes, there will be a standardized maintenance plan. I believe that is in the works as we speak.
That will follow by municipal codes and keep the weeds down where they're supposed to be.
The Postal Service Inspection Service requires that we maintain a mown strip of land 10 feet, and if it is the desire of the neighborhood that we mow all of our property to the property lines as opposed to letting it go natural, all I need to hear is that in writing from the Plan Commission, please.
Land Commission, please do so.
Thank you, Michael.
I don't want to maintain Postal Service property, and I don't want all the mosquitoes. They're not cooperating with us. I don't figure I need to cooperate with them.
Understood. Anything else, Michael?
No, that should do it. Thank you. My neighbor Mary's got a concern with the property that they've cut out and called into her side of that line. That's all full of the woods and stuff. I'd like for y'all not to forget that either.
Okay, I guess I'm just not familiar with Mary's property.
Mary Sikorsky, right on the corner of the property. Okay, well, Philippe. Leach.
Okay.
He's right on the corner of College in Pennsylvania, the very first property.
The very first property. I think I remember speaking with her.
Yes?
This is Christine. If I can add, if Mr. Michael can enter in the chat group or something, his name and address, as well as Mary as well, I think that would be helpful to us.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll see if my wife can do that.
Understood.
They got it already.
If that's it, Michael, we'll go to the next one. Kevin, if there's a next person that wants to speak live.
All right. Anyone else wishing to speak, please use the raise hand function. If you're calling in, I do see there's one caller. Please hit *9 on your phone to indicate you wish to speak. All right, we have Kristen. Kristen, you should be able to unmute yourself. We'll just need your name and address for the record.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yep. Kristen Chmielewski at 2030 East Norwood Drive. Just wanted to actually get a couple clarifications because it was, I was the one that was out there with Joe, Cece, Joe, if you can hear me, and Doug. And you both were going over a couple things regarding the berm or a 20-foot wall, and reassured me at that time that one or the other would be happening. And that at that time there was an L-shaped berm going on, which the L part of that did get taken down. So that giant rock that you were asking me if I wanted in my backyard, and was more than that I could take it, that L-shaped berm there is now gone. That did help a lot to cover that semi-trucking parking lot. But like I said, that's gone. Is there a way to put in something or for them to request that we attach those two berms now? Because now it's just like one line of berms instead of an L shape. Or can that not be done because of drainage? And also back in that same conversation, I can't remember exactly the date that it was when we were all out there conversating, but you said that the property was not going to be maintained and you were going to let it grow wild back over here just like it was in the past. And with the trees that were taken down, those were trees that I put in that you okayed that I would be able to put in around that property line. And now there's still just a big pile of dead tree branches that nobody took care of over there, that pile is still there around all the trees that the landscaping company did put in. So I was just wondering about those questions.
This is Joseph Cece. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I do recall what you're referring to as the L-shaped berm. That actually was not a berm. That was the contractor's storage of topsoil, which had to be used at the base of the interior of the detention ponds. So when I said we were going to construct berms, I did not fully understand it. You wanted to maintain that L-shaped configuration. If the Plan Commission wishes to request that the berm that is currently located, the smaller of the two, be extended into an L-shaped configuration, I request that it do so in writing to the Postal Service in its response. I honestly do not recall these trees that people have referred to several times now as having been removed. I'm available to meet with the city's representative at our mutual convenience to review the situation.
Joe, this is Kristen again. Can I butt back in for just a second? It was actually on I went out there when the fence was coming, and it was the fence person, the fence contractor. He was the one that took down all the existing trees. And the existing trees that I'm referring to were at the end of my road, which is at the end of Norwood going into Spruce. They were right around that property line. And the fencing contractor took them down. He went on, and some of them were planted on Oak Creek side, but he was told by his manager to take it all down and go right where Oak Creek mowed. But Oak Creek was actually leaving those trees there because they were existing trees already.
I can only apologize if that happened. I'm unfamiliar with that situation.
Okay, thank you. Would you be able to talk to the contractors or the landscapers to get rid of the pile of dead trees that's up along the property line?
Absolutely. That is not acceptable for them to leave that there like that. But
Thank
they
you.
are not done with the project yet, and that will be the answer I'll get.
Okay, thank you. And yes, if you, whoever the commissioner, if you guys can all please make sure you put this request in writing on my behalf would be excellent, because all of the surrounding neighbors around where I live anyways, we all want that semi-trucking parking lot covered with something.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just extremely unhappy with all of it. So I'm just really hoping something can be done about covering some of this up. And we can see the fence line. So if you do come out and walk the property is, or the fence line is above the berms. Like we can see all of the fencing.
Okay, thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
Kevin, who we got next?
Next, we have Nancy. Nancy, you should be able to speak. You have to unmute yourself, and then we'll need your name and address for the record.
Nancy Subcheck, 6485 South Crane Drive. Okay.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, I'm going back to this water because I'm right on the corner of Crane at the end of the road there. And I know we were talking about the water and the berms, and they got that little gully or whatever. But when they were putting in the drainage didn't go all the way to the end of their property. It went to just before where they put the fence up now. So all that water beyond that fence, to the east of that fence, is going to run into some gullies. And we've already had terrible water problems in that corner of that lot right there. And I'm just afraid it's just going to be a big pool.
Okay, stormwater on Crane.
So right in the southeast corner there of the property. So the end of Crane. So they have the fence, but the fence isn't directly behind my house. It's behind my neighbor going west. But that whole area that's unfenced is postal property, but they didn't put the draining tubes that they put underground. They didn't put them all the way to the end of their property. They just put them, they ended them right before their fence line inside of their property. And then outside, they got the berm and now a gully there. And that's where the water is going to pool. That's where we've had water problems in the past. And it's going to be worse now because it's going to be running down. It's going downhill now.
Nancy, this is Christine Hanna, one of the commissioners. With the rain that we had yesterday, were you able to kind of see what's happening with the drainage out there? Were you able to take any pictures or anything?
I did not. I work late, so by the time I get home, it's dark outside, so I could not see.
Okay, I was just curious with that heavy rain, how it did look like.
Maybe one of my neighbors have, because I know we were all talking about it.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy. I mean, we do have some notes, and we're compiling the list because we will send a letter. It's no secret. We'll have some more asks of the USPS. So.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Kevin, who we got next?
Next, we have Rachel. Rachel, you should be able to unmute yourself. We'll need your name and address for the record.
Okay, Rachel Miliaca, 6470 South Crane Drive. And I'm at the dead end, across the street from Nancy, but a little bit to the north. And I'm kind of going off of what she talked about as well. And then Christine, to answer your question, I was not able to go out far enough to get pictures of the rain that we had the other day. However, you can see from our front yard that already part of the berm is deteriorating from the rain. And the slope of the berm is right to our front yard. So, and you can't walk there to get the pictures. First of all, the weeds are quite high, so I can't take a picture from my front porch. But we tried to walk closer, so there was a puddle there from just that little bit of rain that we had on Sunday, whatever day it was. It's so muddy, so I can't even go out there to get a picture. But I do have pictures from the before the weeds got so high, and I certainly can submit that to somebody. I'm not sure who. I reached out to Doug and I haven't heard from him yet because I wanted to send him a copy of those pictures.
Okay. Rachel, you can get them into Doug. You get them in our engineering staff. Need be, you can send them to me. And as we get the letter together, we can include those pictures as examples of some of the corrections we're talking about.
Okay.
Thanks, Rachel.
You're welcome.
Very good suggestion, Christine. Thank you. Kevin, do we have another caller?
Right, anyone else wishing to speak, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. There is still a caller, so if you wish to speak on this item, please hit *9. All right, nobody else raised their hand, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, Carrie, here's our question. In the suggested motion, we have 6 things. We've since added stormwater, sewer, and I made some notes. Michael, clarity on mowing up to the property line. Kristen with the L-shaped berm to be considered. The request for vegetation to block the loading docks. Request to put back in the trees that were taken out, that were put in by Oak Creek. And also pick up all the dead trees that they ripped down, which hopefully Mr. Cece will take care of that. This is the dock, screened by some sort of vegetation. Nancy's concerned on the stormwater on Crane. I guess that kind of falls under stormwater all the way around, concerning the gully there at the bottom of the berm. And then, of course, Rachel commented on the same things. Do we put them into the motion, or do we hold it, get the letter with all these concerns? What is our best ploy here, I guess? I'm being a real poker face here.
Well, Mr. Mayor, there was one more issue that I had heard, maybe I misunderstood, but I heard that there was a request for a maintenance plan, an agreement for the maintenance of the landscaping and the berms and the fencing.
Correct. You summed it up way better than me. That was Michael about the mowing, I believe. Questioned it.
So I think this is kind of uncharted territory right now. So I think what we can do is, if the Plan Commission wishes to hold the item in order to prepare a written statement that would then be adopted at the next meeting by the Plan Commission and submitted for response by the USPS, you can certainly do that. Or you can try and craft a motion that would get to some of these issues. I mean, the 6 conditions are specific to the concerns that were raised in the staff report. If you wanted to add to those, you can certainly do that as well. But if the commission wishes to very clearly specify and identify the areas that are more specific than these 6 conditions get to, then I would suggest holding it to the next meeting, and staff will compile all of the comments that have been received to date and put them in a letter for Plan Commission consideration at the next meeting.
Thank you, Carrie. I actually, out of respect for the neighbors, I think we should clearly state what their concerns are, hold this, get a proper letter drafted, review it at the next meeting, and then send it off to Mr. CC at the USPS and see if we can't come together on agreements to help mitigate some of these issues that we have mutually between us.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Don.
I strongly suggest taking Mr. CC up on the walkthrough. I'd be shocked if there wasn't something more that came up, and I would suggest doing it before a letter is sent. Clearly, that's what they're requiring. Any concerns has to be in writing. I think that has been made more than clear in this meeting. If that could be arranged before the letter is sent out, because anything in addition that's noticed on the walkthrough can add to the letter. That's my request or suggestion.
Okay, so I would hold, and we'll recommend to staff that they do the walkthrough and prepare the letter for the next meeting.
Mr. Mayor, can you specify staff? I would suggest that it be the Director of Community Development, as he's been the primary point of contact.
Yes.
If this is to review stormwater, then I would recommend somebody from the engineering department.
I will
Mr. Mayor,
recommend.
would you also like to be on that walk?
Yes, I actually would.
Okay.
I think it would be beneficial. So it'll be the mayor, a representative from engineering, and director of community development.
Can I also request at least an invitation to the District 1 alderman?
Yes, we can certainly invite Alderman Kirkowski to this.
Mhm.
And I just want to reiterate that if this is going to occur and be part of the letter that will be submitted for the Plan Commission's review, our next meeting is October 27th. That leaves us very little time to get this walk scheduled. So what I will do is coordinate with Doug and try and get an email out to everybody. If not tomorrow, then Thursday.
We will try to squeeze this in by mid next week. I'll try to make myself as available as possible to accommodate staff. So, okay. Motion to hold with the recommendations as stated by Carrie, please.
Seifert moves to hold the item until our next meeting.
Hold on, any seconds if that's the motion.
Are we okay with the language we just spoke about, Carrie, with subject to the walk by the mayor, director of community development, representative from engineering, and formulation of the formal letter?
Well, the motion to hold doesn't need to be that specific. It's just holding the item. So what I heard was a motion by Fred Seifert to hold this to the 10/27 meeting, seconded by Commissioner Oldani.
That'll do. Did we get it? We did get a second. Roll call.
That's correct.
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Great. To the neighbors, thank you very much for coming out. Your input was invaluable. Mr. Cece, thank you very much. And again, please keep an open eye for that walk invite so the city and you and your representatives can get together. We can help clarify this. Appreciate you coming out tonight.
Okay.
Great. Now gets us to 7B, if I got my program right. Conditional use permit. Review a request for a conditional use permit for Lakeview Auto for a conditional use permit to allow automotive, motorcycle, recreational vehicles, marine sales facilities on the property at 9543 South Chicago Road. Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a conditional use permit request, and it is for basically for automotive sales. There are some other inclusions in there. The actual category from code, it goes a little bit further than just automotive, motorcycle, and recreational vehicle sales. There's also marine sales. It's not entirely applicable to this particular request, as they're not exactly selling marine equipment as far as boats. What they are planning to sell would be canoes, kayaks, and those kinds of things. So marine sales, yes, it can go in there if the Plan Commission so chooses. This is an indoor showroom only. There is no request as part of this submission for outdoor storage or display of any vehicles. And there is no request for service of any of these vehicles. It's a bit different from the other conditional use permit that the Plan Commission has recently reviewed. The proposal is for an existing multi-tenant commercial building on Chicago Road. It's an expansion of an existing lease. They are currently there as part of their offices, and they are capitalizing on an opportunity to expand their existing lease space. So again, what they are hoping to sell are jet skis, canoes, motorcycles, and what they consider compact collectible vehicles. But again, this is an indoor only showroom. There is, as we'll see on the next slide here, there is an overhead dock door on the west side of the building that has been in place, and that's how the vehicles and deliveries will occur. There will be up to 5 employees for this particular use, and those range from all operations for the particular conditional use permit request. Hours are going to be by appointment only for the entirety of the operation. So on the screen, 8 to 5 Monday through Friday and noon to 5 Saturday and Sunday. Again, all by appointment only. In the red and yellow square, that's the location of the existing dock door where deliveries will occur. Parking required as part of this particular use, calculated at, I believe it's 2 for every salesman and 1 for every peak shift employee, comes out to 10 parking stalls required. And per the lease, they are allowed to have up to 18 stalls for this tenant. There is at least one other tenant that is within that building. No exterior building or site modifications are proposed. However, there may be some retrofit standards that are included as part of the proposed conditions and restrictions that will be part of the Plan Commission's review at the next meeting, should this be recommended for approval. They are anticipating about 2 vehicle sales per week initially, with about 4 per week at the close of the first year of operations. If there are no concerns and the Plan Commission wishes to approve, there is a suggested motion for approval on the screen. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Kevin, is there anybody wishing to speak on this?
We do have the applicant on and available if there are questions.
Oh, if there are questions. Okay, we'll go right to the commissioners then. Christine, would you start, please?
Sure. I have a question. I'm not sure if for you, Carrie, or the applicant. Are there going to be any outdoor signing or advertising for, especially with this new business out there, or any display of any of those type of equipment they are trying to sell?
No outdoor storage or display of any of the items for sale. It's an indoor only showroom. As far as signage is concerned, there's an existing pole sign that I think they already have a sign on there. If there's going to be any signage on the building itself, that would be a wall sign, and they would be required to comply with the code requirements for size and location and things of that nature. So no outdoor storage or display of any kind.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay, Matt?
Nothing, thanks.
Dawn?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, Greg?
No questions or concerns at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Chris?
Nothing for me other than I'm happy to see something happen, with this building and kind of resurrect it and keep it open and an active business. So it's good for me to see.
All right, cool. Don?
I have no questions.
Fred?
Yeah, I have one question for the applicant. I just wondered if all the automotive or parts that they're talking about, are they new or all of them used?
We'll get the applicant on in a sec.
All right, you should be able to speak. If you're calling in, you might have to hit *6 to unmute your phone. Then we'll need your name and address for the record. Looks like he might be having difficulties getting his phone unmuted. Abdel, try hitting *6 on your phone and that should allow you to speak. All right, there you go. You're unmuted now. So you should be able to speak. We'll need your name and address for the record.
All right, name is Abdel Ali. Address is 1420 West Foster Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53221. To answer the question, we will only be selling used equipment at the inception of the business. We plan to franchise and sell brand new vehicles down the road.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that it, Fred?
That's it.
Chauncey?
I do have a question for the applicant. Can you share with us how you would acquire customers since all of your items will be stored on the inside?
Yes, so as Carrie mentioned, everything is going to be based off of appointment only. We have a large web presence. We will be leveraging social media accounts like Facebook, Instagram, along with our website. We have our own scheduling application that's linked to our website that will allow users to inform us if and when they are interested in one of our vehicles, at which point we would send one of our sales reps to meet with the client on site. We would bring the vehicle outside for them and allow them to test drive the vehicle after collecting their driver's license and a pre-authorization payment. If they decide to proceed with the purchase of the vehicle, we will offer financing and settle everything indoors essentially.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mayor, but I have another question, if I may.
Go ahead, Christine.
So, question for you. If you are selling all of those equipment used, how are you going to be maintaining them?
We have a contract in place with a mechanic shop located on South Wind Lake Avenue. That is where the vehicles will be serviced, and that is also where the vehicles will be detailed. Once they are deemed showroom ready, we will bring them into the indoor showroom, give them one last wipe down, and they will be ready for a client to take them for a test drive.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anything else from the
Thank you,
commissioners? Okay, kind of a decent repurpose of the building. I know the building's gone through a couple iterations of tenants, so it's nice to see. Some of the recreational things may be of use at the lake as it fully develops, jet skis, things like that. So I don't have any questions. No vehicles. What about trailers to be stored outside, anything like that?
Not at this time.
Carrie, do we have to make clear in the motion that the trailers, that there's no outside storage of anything? Is it in here?
That would be part of the conditions and restrictions that would specify no outdoor storage of merchandise or equipment, parts, anything like that.
Okay. And of course, any signage comes back to us either way, correct?
The only time the signage would come back is if it needs a variance request. If it is compliant with code, then it can just proceed to building permit applications.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Are there any further questions?
I have one clarification in the motion, and that is to include marine vehicle sales after recreation vehicle to kind of cover all of the requested types of merchandise that would be sold there. So it would be automotive, motor vehicle, recreation vehicle, and marine sales.
Okay, Commission, got that? Okay, somebody like to motion?
Guzekowski makes a motion that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves a conditional use permit for automotive, motorcycle, recreation, and marine vehicle sales within the portion of the existing multi-tenant commercial building at 9543 South Chicago Road. Yep, after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions as prepared by the commission review at our next meeting on October 27th.
Seifert seconds.
Okay.
Roll call?
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Good luck. Next is item 7C, and that is a comprehensive plan amendment. And it's consideration of a proposed amendment to the comprehensive plan that would change the land use from commercial to business park for the property at 9141 South 13th. Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Plan Commission may recall that this was reviewed at a public hearing at the beginning of September. The original request was to change the parcel from commercial to industrial. Within the staff report, there was a suggestion that if industrial was not something that could be supported by the Plan Commission, that business park might be an alternate consideration that might also fit within the request. And that also was presented for Plan Commission review and was part of the motion. At the time, we did not have a full commission, and the split vote was 4 against, 3 in favor. Because there were 2 Plan Commissioners absent, and because the statutory requirement is for a majority of the reviewing commission to recommend approval, 2 absentee votes could actually change the outcome of that decision. Additionally, as was mentioned in the staff report, this is considered a reconsideration. The business, due to the fact that there were 2 absent Plan Commissioners, that could change the course of the vote. The business park option was within the staff report, but not the initial request, and the applicant did take those comments into consideration and provided some revisions based on the discussion at the last meeting. And the reconsideration aspect is taking all of those details into this consideration. So we are not looking at a new hearing before the Plan Commission because we've already fulfilled that requirement. And the ultimate approval authority is actually the Common Council with all comprehensive plan amendments. So there is a public hearing that has been scheduled before the Common Council in order to consider that adoption ordinance. This was something that we had discussed very extensively with the city attorney, and it was determined that this was the proper course of action should the applicant wish to come back to the Plan Commission and request a consideration of the full commission before proceeding to Common Council consideration. So for those who were not in part of that previous discussion, I'll give you a brief overview. This is intended to be the site of a future speculative multi-tenant industrial development at this point. So if the recommendation for approval is what happens this evening, it's not considered an endorsement of any concept plan. Now, you did receive a concept plan as part of your packets. There were revisions that incorporated some staff comments that had been made and that were provided during the public hearing. So what we have here is an extensive history on the west side of 13th Street. To briefly go forward with this, we want to make sure that it's understood that previous approvals do not preclude future amendments, which is why we are here discussing this particular item. And this is particularly important in light of neighborhood and market changes. So, you know, this property has been considered commercial since 1986, as we will discover in a moment. So while the previous approvals don't preclude this from being changed, they do provide insight, and they did inform the land use plan that is included as part of the comprehensive plan that was adopted in March of this year. So how this property came to be where it is right now, in 1979, Ordinance 805 approved an industrial plan development. That included more than just this particular parcel, and in fact, all of the west side of South 13th Street is part of various plan unit developments. That ordinance in 1979 was superseded in 1986 with a commercial plan development. That commercial plan development removed any industrial uses from the approval of that PUD. That was further superseded with Ordinance 2961 in 2020, which allowed for hotel uses on a parcel within the PUD, but that's not part of this request and does not affect this particular parcel at all. And in 2002, the comprehensive plan showed this parcel as planned business. So basically, this particular parcel has been considered commercial since about 1986. That's what it's currently zoned. And what we are discussing tonight is whether or not a commercial use of the property, given the history and the development in the area, is still appropriate, or whether perhaps a business park use might be more appropriate. Business parks, as defined in the comprehensive plan, are groups of buildings planned and constructed as business parks. And those include such uses as offices, R&D, manufacturing. They can include some other ancillary uses as shown here in the definition. It's also important to note that the business park category is specific in terms of location. It says here that they should continue to be concentrated along that I-94 corridor. The surrounding areas have been identified in the comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2020 for various uses. So all along 13th Street, from the intersection of Ryan Road up to this and including this parcel, have been identified as appropriate for future commercial development. Immediately to the north of this property is a parcel that is currently split zoned as residential and B3 office and professional uses, and has been identified for future single family detached, so your traditional single family residential development. Immediately to the northeast, there are existing two-family and single-family homes as part of a subdivision, and single-family attached is immediately across South 13th Street to the east from the subject parcel. And then if we move down to the southeast corner, shall we say, of, or the northeast corner, I apologize, of 13th and Ryan Road, that's the Aldi distribution facility, and that has been identified as industrial. If you move south across Ryan Road, Highway 100, the commercial land use category continues for the existing Wendy's and Quick Trip facility, part of the Ryan Business Park. And then if you move further south, you can see part of South Branch Industrial, you can see part of the Creekside Corporate Park, and then of course the remainder of Ryan Business Park being shown as business park. So we do have a variety of uses that are in the vicinity. And if you move even further across the freeway from the subject parcel, you get into some more residential facilities. You have multifamily, you have two single-family attached and single-family detached. So again, this is a very widely diverse corridor and area that includes a number of uses. The existing uses on 13th Street, immediately south of the subject property, You have Steinhoffels, there is a United Rentals facility, a Granite facility, there's the McDonald's facility, and of course, as we said earlier, the Aldi distribution facility. Within the staff report was an evaluation, and part of that included looking at the existing uses in the area and what the comprehensive plan calls for. In the concept plan for the subject parcel, the multi-tenant speculative industrial building is what is being presented in concept form. That doesn't mean that that is necessarily what's going to be built there. However, that's what the concept shows right now. What would be allowed would be any use in the M1 or LM1 districts, potentially even a multi-district zoning, depending on what the exact proposal would end up being. But those would be the appropriate zoning districts for a business park use. The location meets the preferences of the business park land use category. Again, we're talking about that I-94 corridor having access to the freeway, and this is very close to that intersection with Bryan Road. There are considerations, as we discussed as part of this review, the commercial designation that has been in existence since 1986, the proximity to the residential development to the north and across the freeway, and the proximity to similar uses and interstate access would be one of those supporting arguments for changing the land use category to business use. We do see similar uses that are in the vicinity and indeed south of Ryan Road. Within the business park designation, it allows us to, as a city, review some very important aspects of whatever is being proposed in a future application. We would have control, as with any application, over the function and design of the sites and buildings. That's incredibly important to the city, particularly in this corridor. We also mentioned that the applicant would need to have an understanding of what the types of allowable businesses would be on this particular parcel, as well as the enhancements to the site and landscaping, and we discussed this at the last meeting as well, including buffering to those residential neighborhoods, talking about reduction in lighting wherever possible to reduce that impact to those residents, screening and signage that is appropriate for the area. So with that in mind, I will be happy to answer any questions with regard to process or history or what happened with the previous consideration, but there is a suggested motion for recommendation to approve to the Common Council on the screen. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie, and I really appreciate the history of that. I was one of the commissioners that was not here the first time around on this. I was traveling and I was gone. This is a very interesting parcel of land, without a doubt. And I thought about this kind of long and hard just a little bit before I put it out to the commissioners. The business park designation gives us far more flexibility and control, at least from my point of view, of what we can see and what we can do with this particular parcel of land. Provides for more flexibility going forward, depending on what the markets are, but it also provides, it could turn into office, it could be contractor space, it could be a variety of things, like, manufacturing. So I think that plays very well into it. It's a very integrated area, different businesses. I think the biggest rub I had is we just did the comprehensive plan in March, and I thought, wow, here we are going to change our mind. And as I thought more about it, whether it was 6 months or 6 years, we'd be at the same decision. And ultimately, you have to make the right decision for what's best for the entire city of Oak Creek, whether it's within a 6-month window or a 6-year window when the opportunity presents itself. So those were the things I was considering when I started to look at this, having not been here the first time and only had my reading. So I learned quite a bit through this process. So with that, I'm sure the applicant's with us tonight. I don't know if he just wants to do questions or if he wants to speak first. Kevin, is somebody with us?
Yes, the owner wishes to speak.
Okay.
John, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Please put him on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to go over the entire plan or answer questions, but I think one of the largest questions the last time maybe I should address, which is traffic. And this zoning compared to the proposed zoning, I should say, as compared to the shopping center designation, would be at no time during the day would there be more traffic with the proposed zoning. And in fact, on average throughout Monday through Friday, it's 1/7 the traffic. Or looking at it the other way, the current zoning would have 7 times the traffic per TADDY is their common name, the Traffic Analysis and Design Company. And I just wanted to share that with all the commissioners. And I think they might be pleased to find that information out.
Okay, thank you. Is that it, Mr. Schlater?
Yes, thank you.
All right, great.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring up that I think one of the things that we need to also really kind of keep in mind here is if the commissioners turn to the last page of their report, it's pretty telling when you have a neighbor who's a long time, generations and farmers, recognize that, hey, it was zoned for something, but we really need to put on the brakes and take a look at it just because the markets are what they are. So I think it was a telling letter that neighbor to the north sent, and it just kind of shows what the whole area feels about this type of business coming in.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Let's start. I forgot which way I started last time. Christine, you want to start us off?
Sure. I'm actually looking at that, the letter that Chris has referred to. So my only question that I have here, has this been like any feedback from the neighbors? Like Carrie has mentioned, there are some residents in the neighborhood. Has they had any chance to give an input about this? Do they know about it?
Yes, we as a requirement per our code, send notice within 300 feet of a proposal. We did not receive, or I did not receive, any negative feedback. And in fact, this is the only letter that I received from the neighborhood. We did hear at the previous hearing at least 2, I believe, neighbors that were in favor of the proposal at the time. But like I said, I have not received any questions, and the only question that I actually received was regarding the removal of the trees on the site. Otherwise, I've not received any feedback from the neighbors other than the letter that was included in your Plan Commission packets.
And how long ago was this letter sent?
The letter was dated
the 28th of September.
Couple weeks back.
Yes, it was prior to the notice that went out, I believe, for this meeting. So yes, September 28th is when the letter is dated.
Okay. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
And
thank you,
this is my aldermanic district, and I have not had any negative feedback on it. It's only been positive feedback on about this project.
Thank you, Chris. Matt?
I have nothing.
Dawn?
I was one of them, one of the commissioners that voted no to changing this. I just think this is an exciting new area for commercial development. We had just, changed the plan or adapted the plan. And I'm not sure if, by sending out the notice that we were going to talk about this to residents, did that really tell them exactly what this could be versus what it is zoned for? So I'm not sure that I'm hearing anything else, anything new that I would want to change my vote to no.
Okay, thank you. Greg?
I don't have any questions or anything to add. I agree with the mayor that this, it's really close to us adopting the updated comprehensive plan and yet land use. However, this does seem like a good fit there. And I do like the fact that we'll have a little more control when they come forward with actual plans, and being able to have a say in what exactly goes in there. So.
Thank you, Greg. Chris, floor again.
No, you have, I've said it all. Thank you.
Okay. Don?
Yeah, I kind of got mixed feelings about this. One of the concerns I brought up was the commercial is so close to residents. You have residents right across the street. And so, I think something commercial could better, obviously always depending on what you put in there, could serve the residents a little better. I still feel that way a little bit. And yeah, I agree. I haven't heard anything that's really changed my mind too much either. It's just my 2 cents, and that's not to say this is a bad plan. I think it has to do with the residents. That's really all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Don. Fred?
Yeah, I still have mixed emotions. I could go either way, but I kind of lean towards the commercial for some reason. It just seems to set a little more in that area to me.
Okay. Okay. And Chauncey?
I do have a question for the applicant. Can you provide a little more information on why the change from commercial to business park? What is offered in the business park that is preferred versus the commercial option?
Commercial is largely office and retail. And the office and retail, there are a number of locations throughout Oak Creek that currently offer that. There is Steinhoffel's next door, but other than that, if you take a look at the neighborhood, it's heavier uses directly across the street at Oldie. Going south, there's a commercial and industrial tire center. There's the United Rental, which not only has heavy equipment, but it has extensive outside storage. Even the McDonald's has parking for 16 tractor trailers. And I can almost assure you, with the frequency of those going in and out and the hours that McDonald's keeps, there are many, many, many more trucks going in and out of that McDonald's and traffic in general than there would be with this development. This development is economically viable. Since 1986, this property has been zoned commercial for those retail uses. And nobody, I've personally been attempting to utilize that, and I've spoken to a number of retail type uses, no office users. And nobody has been interested with that designation in this parcel. However, with the business park designation, I have several people that are interested, none of which would require any outside storage, none of the trucks that would be entering or leaving the property would pass a single house. they would be forced to turn right, which is the more convenient way to go in any account to get to the highway. And then maybe lastly, because of the natural grade change of 13th Street going up when you're heading north, the property is actually going to be, last month I said 10 feet below. I was incorrect. Actually 16 feet below grade. So 50% of the elevation of the building will actually be hidden by 13th Street. So I think for a lot of reasons, this does work with the neighborhood. It's actually beneficial. You know, these warehouses, these businesses need to go someplace. And one alternative would be going south on Howell Avenue to the business park there. We actually counted the houses, and depending upon if you take Howell Avenue or 13th Street to get to the highway, which is the way the vehicles would go, you're passing between 40 and 50 houses directly butted up to Howell Avenue or 13th Street. Whereas vehicles leaving this property they wouldn't pass a single house. So I do think it's actually beneficial for the residents of Oak Creek in total. Thank you for changing that slide, somebody. We actually made a slide, and you can see from the business park to the south, the dark blue line or the light blue line are the two options that vehicles would have for getting onto the highway. And as compared to our property, which you can see there just north of the interchange, it's 1/6 the distance overall, so less miles on the roads, and it's not passing a single house. I don't know, did I answer your question?
Partially. So what type of tenants are you looking to have in this building that cannot be in a commercial?
Absolutely. The business headquarters, well, I own a manufacturing company with the headquarters right in Oak Creek. By the way, I've been there for over 10 years. And we've grown. I would like 100,000 square feet of this property to be for our headquarters and business. I have actually 2 food manufacturers that are interested in the parcel. And because those aren't office or retail uses, those aren't allowed. Does that better answer the question? I apologize, I didn't get it the first time.
Oh, no worries. That addressed it. Thank you so very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Anything come up in the course of conversation? Okay, Kevin, is there anybody else beyond Mr. Schlater out there that would wish to speak?
There is a neighbor, Tom Abler.
Would they like to speak?
Sure. Tom, you should be able to unmute yourself. We'll need your name and address for the record.
Sure. Hi, this is Tom Abler, 1230 West York Street.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of questions. One of them, I think the gentleman answered, where there's going to be signage where they can't make a left-hand turn going north on 13th Street. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And I think you answered the other question. It's going to be below grade, so it's going to be lower than 13th Street, your business?
Yes, significantly. Okay. At the York and 13th Street intersection will actually be 16 feet below grade. And if possible, if you could go to the next slide down, I believe it actually shows maybe a slide up, I apologize. And one more slide up. Huh, it's,
Yeah, that's the one.
it's missing there.
I see it. Yeah.
No, that's not.
Oh, I seen that.
That is certainly a view from 13th Street, but that's showing all the building. Oh, maybe.
Yeah, I apologize. It's just loading very slowly.
Oh, no, not at all.
While it's loading, can I rattle off on another question I had?
Sure.
Absolutely.
You had a thumbnail of it. Looked like a street being going in the future. And I don't know if I read that correctly, but did you say that's going to be residential? That's directly north of the building?
That is the neighbor's property to the north. Actually, the neighbor that wrote the letter supporting this change.
And it's currently a farm field, correct, John?
Yes, that's correct.
It's currently being farmed, I believe.
Right. I'm right across the street from that.
Yeah.
So there's a house that's directly across from it. Is that going to be removed? I would think it would have to be because of the road. At least that's the direction of the road.
So this is Carrie. I can kind of explain what's going on with that parcel to the north. What you're seeing is the official map. The official map lays out future roads for the city. There's no immediate plan for that particular road to go in anytime soon. And at such time that parcel comes up for development, that would be reviewed at that time. It is not included as part of this particular request for this particular development of this property.
Okay, good, understood. Okay, and just one comment, especially during rush hour, the cars are coming down there at a pretty good clip. And I think I typed in, not very well, but in the notes that that there might be contractors, or I was thinking large vehicles coming in and out of that intersection. And I can foresee that kind of being dangerous if people are going 45, 50 miles an hour. Because as you said, there is a incline, and sometimes when I leave my subdivision, unless I look way down the road, and even when I do that, people are coming up that hill at a pretty good clip. So
You can't see them.
And you can't see them until the last minute since there is a grade. But that's just my concern.
Thank you for sharing that. In speaking with our traffic professionals, they actually recommended an acceleration lane, which would be part of the plan and certainly pending city approval, but an acceleration lane. So cars turning right out of the property wouldn't actually go into the current drive lane. They would have their own small lane to get going outside of the faster traffic.
Okay, that would be definitely helpful, because I know that's a sharp turn. Okay.
This is Denise, Tom's wife. I do have some other concerns about noise because in the summertime, since they expanded the highway, the interstate, if the wind is coming from the certain direction from the west, we hear a lot more traffic noise. So would we be looking at maybe having some type of barrier, whether it's landscaping or fencing or something, to help with that noise?
Thank you, Denise. I strongly feel that the building itself will actually stop a lot of the noise. However, because of and in consideration of our potential new neighbors and the homes, we're proposing double the landscape that would normally go into a building or development of this type on the north and east corner of the parcel. And certainly those trees would significantly reduce the volume. And in fact, I was out at the site with 3 of my 5 kids just the other day, and one of them made the comment you just did. I can't believe how noisy this is when we were walking along the freeway fence. as opposed to being inside the car. They couldn't believe the difference in the volume. And I do believe, similar to a sound wall, the western wall of this abutting the freeway would actually reflect a lot of that noise back to the west.
That would be awesome. I find it interesting that more of our neighbors haven't commented on this. I mean, I know some of them are further back into our subdivision, so they may not hear the noise and maybe don't see the traffic that Tom and I do because we're right on the corner. But even on good days, I know you talked about changing so that whoever's coming out of your business goes into a separate lane. So does that mean you're widening our road and we're going to lose our berm that we have in our yard?
No, we would only be doing that on the western half for an acceleration lane going south.
Denise, you're referring to 13th Street?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
No,
our
that's-
house abuts both 13th and because we're on York, so we're right on the
Yeah.
corner of both.
So the county does have plans to eventually expand 13th Street.
Okay.
Obviously from Ryan up to Putes and then from Putes to Drexel as they widened it. The example of what you'd probably see is the section from Drexel to Ryan. So again, they would probably take away the ditch, but not the berm.
Okay.
That would be my guess. Not a promise, but a guess.
Right. I understand. Because when we purchased the property, we were pretty much told that they were probably going to expand that road. But they
will, but I think you're a few years down the road yet. They might have pushed that up a little bit, didn't they, Matt? A couple of years, I was surprised by that. Maybe 2024.
Yeah, it was. I know it was on schedule. I think it actually on schedule to be in place already, but yeah, I know it got
The work for the county from Hewitt to Drexel is scheduled for 2023. Anything south would be later.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and regarding the freeway noise, the DOT is doing some sound walls. Unfortunately, I don't recall them doing them on that side of Ryan. I think they put them on years ago on the other side. But I don't think they're putting sound abatement walls right now on that side of Ryan. Or on that side of the expressway, sorry.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I know that they were doing them further south at Oakwood Road because of the changes in the neighborhood there in the shape of the freeway, how it's switched there. So they're putting sound walls there, but they're not moving up to Ryan Road, is what I've been told with our 6th district.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification, Chris. Appreciate it.
Tom and Denise,
yeah, I'm sorry.
if you have any further questions or any of your neighbors, I don't know if it's allowed to give my phone number during the meeting, but certainly the city of Oak Creek has my phone number, and I would welcome phone calls and comments with anything.
Yeah, I don't think you want that part of the public record, John.
No. No. I can certainly provide contact information following the meeting. If you just email me, and I can certainly provide that.
Okay.
That would be perfect.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, one more question. In the entrance, is the entrance going to be south of, right now they have a roughed-in entrance. Is that going to be the only entrance, or is there going to be one further north too?
The one to the south would be for any traffic other than just cars. And then the office traffic would be just toward the north end of the property.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have one other thought, and this is only because we've lived here quite a while. When the highway gets closed down because of accidents, especially with bad weather coming, a lot of people will get off on Ryan and take 13th Street to go wherever they're going. And they seem to think that it's still highway speeds, and I feel a little concerned with that. I mean, I know this isn't part of what this is, but I'm just saying, as long as you're looking at this, it's maybe something to think about down the road.
No, it's actually something to think about now, Denise, particularly a little north of you at the middle school. And it's my understanding, talking to the county supervisor, that they're gonna lower the speed limit in that section. So, you know, whether they change it as far south of you, I'm unsure, but it's never too soon to think about that, because that's always a concern on a road like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Mayor, this is
Go ahead,
Commissioner
Matt.
Sullivan. Correction on the dropping of the speed limit. They are reviewing it at this point. They haven't given a yay or nay on the lowering. So.
Well, at least we're getting a review. It's better than what we've been asking for a long time, particularly around the middle school. So,
Just an
Assistant Chief.
FYI, FYI from my perspective to everyone, and especially I heard you, Mr. Mayor, saying that there is a potential for widening 13th Street here. And especially what's happening was from Ryan Road going south on Drexel, I'm sorry, going south on 13. The more that you widen the road, the higher the speeds that people go.
True.
So even if you post it at 35, 25, however you want to post it, wider road, enhance speeds or increase the speed. So we have to put this in mind when we widen the road and approve those. I understand it's a county road, but also it goes through the city.
True. Great point. Great point. Okay. Anybody else before I chime in? Assistant Chief Havey, any comments out of fire, one way or the other, on the difference of uses? It probably makes no difference to fire, I would think.
Mike Cady, Assistant Chief Fire. We don't have any consideration as far as the use, and really no concerns with the site or the access to the project.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else before I throw my 2 cents out there as to where I'm going?
Yes, I do have a quick question for Carrie. So for the other business park areas, are they as close to the residential area as this property would be?
The Ryan Business Park is very close to existing residential. Oakview Business Park is right across the street from existing residential, both on Oakwood and on Howell Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, very quickly, I kind of gave you a synopsis early on. You know, we looked at the land. It had various iterations of zoning. I really looked at it, and again, probably in a perfect world, yeah, maybe commercial's best. Given what's going on commercially, I think the flexibility of the business park is probably our best bet. And I say that because the building can be used for many purposes, whether it's light manufacturing. You could get an engineering firm in there to occupy part of it. And I kind of went around the city and looked at a similar situation building. If you're familiar with where Black Diamond Contractors used to be, heavy road contractor, maintained vehicles, did a lot of stuff. They're actually located across from Station 3 Fire Department, big long industrial building. Black Diamond moved out of there. Again, the rezone allowed, you know, the business park zoning or the rezone of it allowed places like City 13 to go in, which is actually an entertainment place, an escape room place. It allows just more functionality for different things. It could become a contractor shop, could become a wholesale house for contractors, just a host of things. And I look at some other places we have, along 13th, like where Hein Electric is and Summit is a furnace place. They're all located there too. So we also have it up around Anderson Court, which is across from Burlington Coat Factory. Similar uses in there, and that's kind of a true business park. We have contractors there, we have fabrication buildings in there, and it provides that flexibility versus it just being bang, all manufacturing or bang, all commercial retail. So, probably the hardest pill I had to swallow was to look at this comprehensive plan and say, wow, we just went through this exercise in March, and then all of a sudden this pops up. But it would have been, for me personally, it would have been the same question whether it was 6 months or 6 years. What's the best use of the property and what provides the citizens the most flexibility? I am sensitive to the neighborhood. I don't believe residential is ever going to go to the north. We talked about the sound, the noise issues. We do have a subdivision up farther north of a middle school, and if you've ever walked through there, it is quite noisy. I think there's better places to locate some residential there. You know, and the property owners to the north are in favor of it. So it's not to say that business park couldn't expand at some point in time to the north, which again provides us more flexibility that way. So the traffic, I know we kind of got way off path there, and we can kind of go through all iterations of study, and depending on what comes in there, it can change, can be better, always be better and safer or worse. But for the most part, I think I'm okay with the business park. After I got educated on what it really meant, I really do think it provides the city some flexibility going forward into the future. So that's where I'm sitting.
Mr. Mayor, this is Carrie.
Yes.
I just want to put out there that with the zoning code update, there might not be a complete foreclosure on inclusion of any possible commercial on this property, even within a business park designation. And let me try and explain that.
Okay.
What the comprehensive plan category for business park includes is a mix of office, training, research, production, other ancillary uses. In current code, whether it be the LM1 or the M1 manufacturing districts, there is a provision for a portion of a tenant space to have a retail component. So for instance, should Mr. Schluter's business ever determine that, you know, they want to have some portion of it be a commercial space, they would have the ability in current code to do that under the M1 or LM1 district. It's a small portion right now, the small portion being about 1,250 square feet. But the other part is that we currently allow wholesale operations in manufacturing districts as well. So that's kind of a specific clientele, but it would still have that almost commercial feel to it, where people would be going in and potentially, you know, obtaining goods and services, but on, you know, a business to business kind of scale. In fact, we just had a request for occupancy for a business to business wholesale operation in an existing multi-tenant manufacturing building. So, you know, I do agree that a business park designation just allows for a whole host of land use categories that would include up to manufacturing. We still do have the capability at the city level to regulate the types of uses, be they, you know, with a conditional use permit, or whether it has too much of a conflict with the existing neighborhood. We do have those controls already in place and available to us at the time that this particular parcel, whatever it may be, whatever it ends up being proposed to be developed with, we still have those controls in place. We do have rezoning, conditional use permits, site plan reviews that would all be appropriate should this move forward. And for those site plan reviews, some things like we said before, reduced lighting or lighting sensitive to the neighborhood, increased buffers and landscaping, context of the building and the architecture, all of these things would come up for review by the Plan Commission at site plan review. So there are still extensive controls for, again, whatever happens on this property, be it manufacturing, business park, or commercial. I hope I made that clear. I hope I didn't confuse anybody in my initial presentation with that. if there are any further clarifications that I can make, I would be happy to do so.
Nope, gotcha, Carrie. Good examples. And again, I've been in and out of a lot of business parks, and as Carrie, for the commissioners that aren't familiar with it, like wholesale houses, when contractors go to buy, they typically don't go to Menards and Home Depot. They go to a wholesale house, and it's actually a small retail space with warehouse in the back, and they get their parts and supplies that way. And we do have a couple of them in the city.
If I can make another comment though, it's still, whether there's commercial, whether you can go in and drive and buy something in the building, that building is still going to look like an industrial building to me.
Well, we have control. We have controls of that. Now we're not talking about the building right now. We're talking about the land use.
Right, right. But we've seen the image of what they're proposing for that area. I just don't think that, I mean, yes, it could be many things, but we pretty much know what the intent is for the building that that we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So, but again, the building would come back for site and plan review. So, have we talked enough? Are we ready to motion?
I'm ready for to make a motion if everyone else is done.
Go ahead, Chris.
Guzikowski makes a motion at the, wait, hold on, I lost it. That the Plan Commission adopts resolution 2020-01, amending the land use plan category in a comprehensive plan, City of Oak Creek, adopted March 3rd, 2020, from commercial to business park for the property at 9141 South 13th Street, following a public hearing and adoption by the Common Council.
Lorick, second.
Roll call.
Hannah, no.
Sullivan, aye.
Gorilla, no.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, no.
Okay, Carrie, where do we wind up?
Mr. Mayor, it appears from the count that we have 3 against and 7 in favor, which is a majority. Therefore, motion passes.
It'll move on to Common Council for final decision, correct?
That is correct. There will be a public hearing held before the Common Council on November 17th.
And everyone will be notified within 300 feet, correct?
Correct. In fact, the notice will be published tomorrow, and notices will be sent this week.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes?
the vote was 6-3. There's only 9 members.
Oh.
6-3. My apologies. Thank you, Matt. I miscounted. So it's still it is still a passed motion with 6-3.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. We have one more item for consideration, and that is review site landscape and related plans at the Ryan Business Park for a historical marker in our pocket park pocket park at the property at 9601 South Bartell Court. Got tied up there. Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you everybody for your consideration and for sticking with us on this extremely long but very good conversation that we've had this far. Lastly on the agenda tonight, we are going to be talking about that historic monument pocket park that we had previously discussed as part of the certified survey map that further divided this parcel into the right-of-way for Bartell Court, the Outlot 5 that included the monument sign that was reviewed tonight, as well as some stormwater infrastructure. And this is Lot 8 of that recorded CSM. This is actually going to be provided to the city when it's all completed. But right now, what we are asking for the Plan Commission to review are the overall site design, landscaping, and details for that pocket park. You will note that the sign appeal is required for the historic monument marker. That is due to the height, but that will be reviewed at the October 27th meeting. So right now what we're looking at is the overall design of the park, as well as the location of that historic monument. Again, this is lot 8, so it's further down on Bartell Court, just before you cross the bridge to get into the Amazon property. And this is the design of the proposed park, which includes aggregate walking paths. The marker is in the center of that circular area there. That marker will have some specific information on it that we'll talk about once we get to the image for it. There are repurposed railroad crossing stone blocks that are used as decorative accents throughout the park. Those are those rectangles that you see there. And they will also be used as, I believe, seating elements. And applicant Mike Faber, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it does appear that they are set up in such a way that they could be used as seating for the park itself. The lights that are proposed, there are pole lights in 5 locations for the overall lighting of the property, the paths specifically, and then there will be some decorative uplighting for the historic monument on either side. Landscaping is also proposed for this park quite extensively, noted here on the proposed plan. So you can see that the paths actually connect to the future development on the parcel to the north and to the existing sidewalk on Bartell Court. And this is what the historic monument will look like. It will be, again, at the center of that circular path. And the information that will be contained on it will be a brief history of the existing Union Railroad, some history about the believed story of how Ryan Road came to be known as Ryan Road. And then on the reverse side, the history of the properties within Ryan Business Park. So going back to the original landowners up to today. So if there are no further questions from the Plan Commission, there is a suggested motion for approval subject to these conditions. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. This is really a cool little part of the Ryan Business Park. I want to thank Mr. Faber for coming forward with this as he dug in and assembled these properties. It's quite a unique story to the property and the families. It goes back hundreds of years. Goes back to the early 1830s. So this is really neat that we don't forget our past as we're developing our future. I think it's really cool. But I'll leave it open to the commissioners for questions and comments. Chauncey, you want to start us out?
Surely. A quick question. I believe this may be for Carrie. Is there anything specific to the property that needs to be done prior to it being transferred to the city?
There will be a maintenance agreement that's either in place already or will be in place regarding maintenance of the park in perpetuity by the Ryan Business Park Association. I believe deeds are being coordinated at the legal level for both the city and for the business park. Completion of the park is really, I believe, the final determinant as to when the property will be transferred to the city.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Fred?
Problems? I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Don?
I have no questions. I like it. It's something different and probably needed.
All right, thank you. Chris?
I agree with what everyone's saying. It's really a nice a tribute to the to the history and to what was and a nod to the future too, holding its namesake. And the other thing is it's also not the same as the pocket park is not the same as our city park that's going to be further down on the property for the neighborhood over there. Just wanted to differentiate that. We have work to do on that yet.
great point, Chris. And again, this helps provide even more green space in there and preserve some of it. I know a lot of it has disappeared for good, but this does keep a little patch of it in perpetuity. So,
Mhm.
all right.
Thank you.
Greg?
No concerns or questions. I just want to thank the applicant for doing this. And I look forward to it opening to visit that place.
Yeah, it'd be exciting to get in there and see it. Gets us to Dawn.
No, looks great. Thanks.
Okay, Matt?
Nothing.
Chauncey?
Is that Commissioner
Christine,
Christine?
Commissioner Hannah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I
that's fine.
totally wound up on the wrong end of the bench here. Sorry, Christine.
No, nothing at all. No, nothing here. Thank you.
Okay. Then motion on D, please.
Guzikowski will make a motion that the Plan Commission approves site landscaping and related plans submitted by Michael Faber, Ryan Business Park LLC for the property at 9601 South Bartel Court, lots 8 of CSM 9265 with the following conditions. 1, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. 2, that the location of the historical monument sign is approved. A variance through sign appeal process for height of the sign is required. And 3, that the plans are revised to include locations and screening from any new transformers and utilities if applicable. All detailed revised plans will be submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay. It will get us to adjournment. Before we adjourn, Carrie, are we going to adjourn and then some of us stay on? What is the plan?
Yes, following
Great.
adjournment, if the plan commissioners could just stay on for a quick minute. This is not regarding any business that we have to conduct for tonight, but it's rather housekeeping.
Okay. Before we adjourn, Dawn, we're winding down the farmer's market. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, we only have 2 weeks left. It's been a crazy year for the farmers. So if you can grab a mask and come out and help support them, we are open from 9 to 1 on Saturday. And then the following week on the 24th is our Fall Fest. There's quite a few changes because of COVID. So, but we still have live music and food and a few things for the kids to do that are safe.
Great, thank you very much. And that'll get us to adjournment. So
Carrillo moves to adjourn at 8:37.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Carrillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Great. Thank you, staff. Thank you very much.